In the words of the legendary Luke Gellerman, hello, dog fans, and welcome to the Sound the Siren podcast because everything matters, including, for starters, fall camp starts next week. And we at Sound the Siren are quite a bit overdue to get into some recruiting matters tonight. I've got Hood, Husky, and Darker Knight, and we're going to talk some offensive commitments to Washington. We're going to premiere the Sound the Siren F-Bombs recruit rating scale. It's a little bit of a work in progress. We'll do this a final time when this class is finalized, both in December and in February. But, gentlemen, how are you doing this evening? Long time no see. Good to see you, gents.
Always good to be home, man. Good to be back.
Back talking dogs.
Facts, man. We good, man. We good over here. It's been a long time since we got to do this, man. I'm excited.
Me too. I've got to say, in our GCs, I've had big FOMO with everybody talking about CFP 25. I don't have it, and it's a ways out for me yet. But we're talking real ball today. So, as I said, we're talking offense. But we do, of course, have to at least touch on beverages. Darker Knight, you got anything tonight, or is it that high quality?
You know
H2O?
what I'm on, baby. It's that high quality H2O. Add a
Very
little
nice.
lemon in there for some splash effect.
Nice. Gotta flavor it up a little bit.
It was blessed by an Eskimo.
What do you got tonight, bud?
Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? You know, in the spirit of the pod, man, I got me a Negra Modelo.
Oh.
Yeah, had to get chocolate on them.
Chocolates.
And I got nice. I gotta say, in the spirit of the pod, I've got an Icicle Brewing Company Enchantment's Hazy IPA, and Enchantment is watching some of these kids tape. It's a great experience. This is very encouraging stuff that Fish and his staff are doing in terms of putting this class together. And then when I finish this up, I do have to shout out that I'm going to move on to a non-alcohol beverage, and I've got the Athletic Brewing Company Right Pursuit non-alcoholic lemon radler. So we're on the lemon train together, Darker Knight.
Okay,
or I will be soon.
Come on.
Or dogs of a
All
pack,
right.
should I say.
Do we have any stupid tweets other than just saying at Big Game Boomer every day, all day?
Not on my end. What you got?
Nah, I don't either, man. I mean, I got some stupid interactions and stuff like that. You guys know how people think that I'm the spokesperson for all things Husky. Like, all I do is have my specific opinion. You don't even have to agree with it, bro. But, like, to continuously tell somebody that they're wrong about something when this is a completely subjective, like, we're in the off season. Everything is, conjecture in the first place, man. So, talking about finites and, bullying people, it's crazy, man. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and how many?
I'm done.
How many times last year did we get told that Oregon was going to bully us off the field?
Let them have their off-season natty.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I don't know if you guys saw, but I just had recently. I personally felt like, there's in the big, there's two teams that have the balance on both sides of the ball, the balance and the talent. I feel like that was Ohio State and Oregon. I do not feel like Penn State and Michigan are in the same tier as those guys off the strength of just the balance, having the talent on both sides of the ball. When you look at talent on one side of the ball, that's Penn State, that's Iowa, that's Michigan, that's Nebraska, and then kind of to a lesser degree having spurts of talent all over the team. I feel like that was that's Washington a little bit. So a lot of people just feeling like Michigan and Penn State are in that tier one. I just don't see it. And Bud Elliott used the excuse of, look at the body types on their team. I don't know what that means. So
I mean, Drew Aller's got a prototype quarterback body type, but dude couldn't hit the broadside of a barn when it mattered last year. So
at all. You know who else had those prototype typical bodies? Oregon had them apparently. Texas had them. So like, what does that even mean? So
the teams with the least, I've said it. I also forgot in the intro that we are a proud inaugural member of the College Huddle Network. Please do check out the collegehuddle.com as well as the social media at College Huddle and the other College Huddle podcasts. I've had the privilege of jumping on to a few of those, including the Ohio podcast, the Big Ten Football Talk podcast. And what we're talking about right now is things that I have said, and I think we all agree that, like, Oregon and Ohio State probably have the least questions of the teams in this conference going into 2024. But there is no team, like, there is no other team in this conference. It's like, yep, they're rock solid every aspect of the game. No. There's a whole lot of mess in the middle, and teams that could be really good, teams that could be really bad, and teams that could be somewhere in between.
It's just, it's going to really remind me of, and a lot of people of, the reputation of the Pac-12. I think, the addition of these 4 teams really force a change in the style of play in the Big Ten. One point that I was making a lot was just how, everybody basically went out there and got a new offensive coordinator. And albeit I think they averaged over 25 rushes a game, Wisconsin went out and is running an air raid. So when you say who's more not scared, but who's preparing for who, it really looks like the Big Ten is preparing for the skill sets of those 4 teams. And obviously the 4 teams have to prepare for it in the trenches, but it's actually seeming like we're making all 4 teams are making an easier transition in the trenches than I would say they are in the skill positions. They got the offensive coordinators for it, but they haven't got the personnel yet.
The speed of the game
that
is
was
different,
a stupid opinion.
Trend of interactions.
Yeah, that was a stupid trend of interactions. I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah, we're used to that. So let's go ahead and dive into the 2025 class as it stands currently. Always subject to change, and it's certainly, I think, going to change a lot based on some things that came out this week with the NCAA expanding scholarship limits to 105. So we could have a very long set of podcasts coming on this one, folks. We could be talking about it. We get to December and February. We could be talking about 30 or 35 new members of the Washington Husky football program. But let's start. I've got him on our F-bomb. And by the way, when I talk about this, I'll briefly intro the Sound the Sirens F-bombs recruit rating scale. So our rating scale, it's on a 1 through 5, and the categories are frame. And by frame, we're talking about size and body type for the position, the ability to add good weight, so some projectability there. We're talking about physicality. Yes, I know it's not technically an F, but bear with me. We're talking about position-based athleticism traits, including QB arm talent, wide receiver speed, hands, body control, things like that. Flair, when we're looking at tape, the wow factor, the highlights, tape that just pops. Use an example of that. Let's go back to Romo Doomsay's high school highlight tape. That thing popped. We're talking about football IQ and instincts, the motor, the running back vision, defender play recognition, things like that. And feet and flexibility, that's position-based. That's an offensive lineman pulling, DB footwork and hips. Edges, bending the hip, bending at the waist, bending to get around the corner. It is a 5-point rating scale. A 1 is likely, a project or a depth. A 2 is a likely contributor. 3 is somebody that we would see as, having starter level traits in this category. 4 would be a projectable, all conference. And then 5 being a somebody that we could easily see being an All-American award winner, round 1 pick. In regards to, we were talking about it pre-show. So when we're talking about frame, if we give somebody a frame 5, this person is like, this is a freak. You're talking about Megatron. You're talking about DK Metcalf at wide receiver. You're talking about Javon Curse at end. The true rare humans. We're talking about Vita Vea at defensive tackle. to bring it a little closer to home, like the Reggie Williamses of the world, those kinds of players. So, highest currently exclusive offensive committed to the University of Washington is a wide receiver out of Archbishop Riordan, and that's Chris Lawson, a 6'1", 175-pound current listing wide receiver from San Francisco. From the tape, what do you guys think before we get into the ratings?
I'll say first things first, man. The first word in this, and it's all caps, I just said different. You know what I mean? And I mean to yell that, but you know I got neighbors.
Not
Different,
Malik though.
different for sure, man. I'm talking an NFL frame. If you look at all of the guys in the NFL that are those explosive and route runner types, the Stephon Diggs type guys, you know what I mean? Like that is this body type, the kind of Cooper Cup kind of guys like that. That is kind of this body type. That smooth athlete, fast. You know, frame doesn't allow him to be, you know, we are talking about, you know, the rating scale. His frame doesn't necessarily allow him to be overly physical, but for his size, he is definitely a physical player, plays through contact. You know, there's not, you know, I sat back and watched the number one receiver in the country. And I, you know, to be honest, in regards of impact at the college football level, I don't really see too much of a difference between a guy like Chris Lawson and a lot of the what others are rating or considering the better receivers in the country. I think one thing that has to be considered that's typically not, it's just, oh, you're the number one player in the country or you're the number one receiver in the country, is that no different than, like, I'd say this NBA draft class. It's okay to say that, like, a class is not great, you know, and just because you got the number one player or the number one receiver, there may not be a huge gap between number one and number 25 because everybody's just kind of whatever, you know, are the same level. So with Chris, there's nothing that you kind of want for outside of something I'd say that you said would be if he was 6'5", 225, that would be the only thing that he can kind of change. There's nothing he doesn't do well or at a very high level. You saw you had to tame me back a little bit. You saw like I was rage putting in the fives and the fours because I didn't know where to, you know. But yeah, he's my
Our
favorite
rating scale was a
offensive
work
player.
in progress, and we were talking through it. So yeah, no, it's all good, and I had to rein it in myself because feeling out process. We you know, this is version 2.0 as we were kind of working through how we assessed and kind of how we, you know, the ratings levels. Yeah, I you know, talk about, you know, physicality, and one of the things that the one that really stands out to me on his tape is there's one where there's four, like he's running down the sideline and there's four dudes, and like they either look like they're going to tackle him or they're going to easily be able to shepherd him out of bounds. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know whether he sidestepped and threw a couple of dudes off, but all of a sudden, like, there's four dudes, and then there's just Chris Lawson running to the end zone. I'm like, how? How did he Houdini out of that into putting six on the board? Like, what? What was that? Whatever it was, I like it. I'd love to see it in Husky Stadium. But Darker Knight, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, he definitely. I mean, I just put buttery because he has like that slippery effect to him where whether he's running or shedding a tackle or how he's eluding, he's just smooth. Like natural hands, really good route running. You can tell he practices on his craft. Explosive, but knows when to use his speed, changes his speed really well in and out of breaks, specializes in breaking routes. He's going to be a problem. I definitely can see him, getting that 5th star before the end of the year for sure.
Something really quick, a note that I had was outside of being an elite athlete, there's the mental element, and I felt like he played with a chip on his shoulder at the catch point, after the catch, and in his route tree. So he didn't necessarily need to be demonstrative and talk trash to corners. He is competing with his craft, which is a different level of football player for sure.
Shows that want to just get better regardless of the level of competition, and that's, if we're going to talk, I mean, I think that's evidenced by any number of guys on out of in our receiving room of late, but the one that certainly comes most to mind in that workhorse mentality is the newest wide receiver for the New England Patriots in Jalen Polk. But let's go ahead and get into the rating scale for Mr. Lawson. So for a frame, I had him as a 3. This is a starter level frame. Like, there's 6'1", 175, 180, 190 pound receivers all over college football. It's not, putting him in the middle of the scale that's not a knock. This is a standard. For physicality, I definitely gave him that 4, like to what you were saying with the physicality at the catch point, using his body to shield, physicality and running through tackles. There's definitely enough on his highlight tape that I gave him a flair for. a football and IQ and instincts 4, and a feet and flexibility 4 as well, for a total of 19. So that's an average rating of 3.8 for me. Hood, how about you? How do you look at Chris? I think we have a little divergence, but ultimately got to a pretty similar number.
Yeah, man. So, in regards to size, I think this is where you had to take me back a little bit. Um, frame and projectability, I kind of think of the next level, and I'm like, well, there are receivers that are the best receivers in the league, and they have his size, but taking that step up to the freaks, obviously that physically is not a freak. So I would say at frame, I got him out of 4 because I do think it's an NFL body. I think it can fill out to 185, 190, 195 and still be an elite mover, and maintain his quickness and speed. Physicality, I kind of used projection more so than his high school physicality. So I do have that as a 2, only because I feel like at the next level, a lot of those broken tackles are going to be, they're going to be secure tackles. I didn't see like a go-to move or anything like that to kind of break tackles or anything like that. So, and then there were, I believe I remember a few blocking highlights, but I didn't really, that wasn't anything that was necessarily a feature. As if you look at like, other people's highlights, you see like some blocking highlights. So physicality, I got it a 2. Flair, I got it a 4. I think if he didn't say a word during the game, you'd feel him and you'd know. You'd still, his swag is going to bring out the oohs and the ahs from the crowd, whether he engages it or not. And then football instincts, I do feel like at the next level, all he really has to work on is his crafting. You know what I mean? But as far as having instincts, I would say as a high school senior and as a true freshman, there's not going to be much that are better than his feel for the game. So I got that at a 4. And then feet and flexibility, I like my feet work. And I feel like nobody ever interrupts his stride. Nobody ever interrupts his speed. He has the dexterity to kind of have his upper body move independent, kind of like Dante Pettis. His upper body move independent from his lower body while maintaining his stride length and his speed. So I got that at a 4 as well. So I didn't average it out, but
It's in there. A total of 18, so an average rating of 3.6, which is
3.6. Yep. So I got 3.6. Yep.
Which is
Comparable.
certainly comparable. Yeah, no, comparable between starter and all conference level. Projected as we look at it. But certainly, we have to hear from the darker night on Mr. Lawson. So take it away, sir.
Mr. Lawson. So 6'1", 175. I got his frame at a 3. It's kind of your average freshman receiver starting, which you kind of at least his senior year coming into his freshman year of college, kind of add that good weight. Physicality, I had him at a 3. Just not really his game. While he will contest and go up for 50-50 balls, I feel like his strength is more in space and not trying to outmuscle you. So I kind of grade him average there. Flair, I gave him a 4. I'm a sucker for good route runners. And someone that takes pride in their craft, and I think he does that. At the highest level, he's one of the very few commits that we had that I was like, he has little to no holes in his game. His football IQ and instincts actually had a 5 because of the way he utilizes space. And you can tell he knows how to set up his routes during games and set up DBs and use leverage against DBs, which is very rare for a lot of receivers, a lot of those higher tier receivers that you see making immediate impacts, which I think he can do next year. Feet and flexibility had at a 4. Couldn't be overly generous. I didn't want to be Santa Claus, but definitely liked his feet and flexibility. But he's definitely elite for a high school kid coming out. So I had his total grade at a 3.8.
Yep. 19.
Yeah.
So you and I got there differently, but got to the same destination in terms of the overall rank for Mr. Lawson. From there, the next highest rated recruit is a tight end, and that is Vanderplug, 6'6", 223 pound, 0.9196 composite 4-star from Fullerton, California. in terms of thoughts. Darker Knight, you want to talk about Vander first?
I just love the swag he plays. I mean, he's a kid. He knows going to talk when he's on the field, but just utilizing his height, which a lot of guys don't do at that, with his size and flexibility. Natural hands catcher, which you love. Someone you can split out, or you can have inline as a tight end and use him multiple different ways, which Jed Fish loves to do with his tight ends. So I think he's a natural fit there. He has some nastiness to him. Although he's not an overly powerful blocker, he definitely will, put his nose in the fan and get dirty when he needs to. And like I said, the thing that stood out to me the most is just his competitiveness. I love his competitiveness and his athleticism. So yeah, I gave him some decent marks. If we're going frame, I gave him a 4. I mean, you can't teach 6'6", 223 coming in college. Physicality, I gave him a 4 only because I love the way he high points balls, and 50-50 balls are really 80-20 balls when it comes to him. Balls. Flair, I gave him a 4 as well. He has a flair for the dramatic, if you would say, where he's going to let you know about the play he just made and is not afraid to do so. Football IQ and instincts, I gave him a 3. Hadn't really watched a ton of game film on him to really see, the full dexterity of his football IQ and instincts, but I can imagine by the way he plays, I mean, he knows what he's doing on the field. Can't fault him for that. Feet and flexibility, I gave him a 3 as well, which totals out to an 18. He's a 3.6 over.
Yep. Go ahead. What would you like to add?
Well, that's tough to add that to Vander. But same thing, man. I think the primary thing for me was just his competitive nature. There's just something about I don't care what sport it is. When somebody's in love with the sport, it bleeds through the screen, and it bleeds on the field. Like you can feel it. They impact their team. He was an obvious leader on their team as well. You can see after plays, his teammates were running to him, or after other plays people would make, he would run to them. So I really like, his presence on the field. You definitely can feel him when he's out there. The fact that he lines up everywhere on the field, and it's a mismatch. The thing I had in my notes mainly was that word was just a mismatch. He's a mismatch nightmare all over the field. Can line up outside, inside, or in line. Now I feel like, you can run into situations where he's on the field, and you have an inline tight end, and you have him on the field as well, just to create a mismatch. And if you look at what Jed Fish and Carroll were able to do with, I believe his first name was Tanner McLaughlin. Able to have him be an NFL guy with his movement skills and the versatility they were using there. He fits exactly what they were doing. And in regards to the rating scale, frame. This is funny because this is the only time there's 2 people I think that have 5 frames in this class, and he is one of them in my opinion. The height kind of just stands out. Being 6'6", I mean, you're already over 215, 220 pounds. That's ideal. A guy coming in at 235, 240, 245, you kind of worry about his movement ability and his movement skills. Now, we have seen, like I said, freaks that are, 250, 260, 6'5", 6'6", that are moving. But those, I don't know. I still feel like Vander Plug is a 5.
Brock Bowers doesn't grow on trees.
And even if you add
right.
15, 20 pounds to him, he still maintains his movement skills like that. That's just him. So,
yep.
Physicality, once again, I didn't see too much blocking. But a tight end's job in modern football to determine physicality isn't just blocking now. So I tried to couple in that physicality in his routes as a pass catcher. So I actually have that as a 3. I have that as a 3. Flair, once again, to what Darker Knight was saying, man, when a play is made, he gonna let you hear about it. He's the type of guy that, don't sub me out, coach. I'm gonna limp this route. I know my nose is bleeding, but I want to tape it up. Let me get back in there. So he's going to be one of those type of guys. And his last name is really easy for the crowd to yell. So I think that's going to be part of that flair there too. Football instincts, 4. He has nuance in his route running, nuance at the catch point, and I think he has a really good feel for the position to be able to play with that type of confidence. And then feet and flexibility. I was trying real hard on this one. I gave it a 3. But at 6'6", 225, the way he moves, I would be hard pressed to say this is, it can also be considered a 4. He is the one guy, and it's just based off position too. He's the one guy I feel like that does have that like All American potential that just jumps off the screen, in my opinion. So, and more because of position too. So, and that's a total of 18. That's a total of 19, and that's 3.8.
So yeah, potential, high level starter, all conference level player, and I can't say that I disagree.
That's right.
He reminds me a lot of Mike Gesicki when I see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, like for the, certainly, a lot of the highlights are kind of as that stretch receiver. Again, all over the field, a lot less in line. Certainly a willing enough, very well for a dude that's 6'6" and 223. The ultimate question and kind of why. I'll talk through kind of my ratings. The ultimate reason that I put him at a 4, and it was kind of in that 3 to 4 range in terms of the frame, is kind of how is the intent of use. And looking at his frame, if we were Iowa or if we were Penn State, and tight end was going to be 90% in line and occasionally split out, can he put the weight on to add 40, 50, 60 pounds to be an every down inline blocker? Can he be KDOT? Probably not. Can he be, but utilized properly as that stretch receiver, as that wide tight end, move all over the field, essentially a significantly taller Hunter Bryant, Vander Plug is an absolute weapon. So for frame, I had him as a 4. Physicality, and again, kind of with physicality, and I'm not just looking at it in just in terms of how physical they are, how much they're like dominating the guy across from them just with brute strength and bossing somebody, but it's that physicality for the position, and absolutely starter quality. If not, maybe it's, we're not doing half points, but there's a number of players where if we were doing half points, this would be one of those places. Flair, definitely a 4. You don't see tight ends and projected tight ends flat out running away from people the way that he did on his tape. Football IQ and instincts is a 4 for me, and the feet and flexibility is another 3. So I had him as an 18 and a 3.6, but certainly with just a ton of upside there in his tape, and easily could see this. And I will again mention that after we conclude going through all of the offensive prospects tonight, we are going to revisit the entire class after we've had the chance to see senior tape. And so some of these numbers, can and will likely move, and then it'll also be fun going forward, out into the years in the future, being able to look back at our initial rankings once they've concluded their Husky careers. So let's go ahead.
I have 2 clear favorites, and that are Vander Plug and Chris Lawson on that offensive class for sure. And obviously, I believe there's another offensive player who makes an immediate impact, but those 2 specifically, just the way they play, we got to see, that outward demonstrative kind of, vibe from like Jalen Polk, a little bit from Jalen McMillan, a little bit from Mike Penix. I just would love to keep that swag and energy on offense. We've traditionally had that on defense, that kind of swagger, the talk trash. I would love to keep that, on offense, and not just, the quiet killers. So,
yep, agreed. Well, let's move on to the next. If I can take 2 seconds to flip through my notes to find where I have my write-up or my brief write-up and notes on the next highest rated offensive player in the class, and that is Champ Taulea, an interior offensive lineman at 6'4", 325 pounds, a .9059 composite 4-star from Valley Christian in San Jose, California. My thoughts, briefly, pretty damn explosive out of his set. So I could get a little high occasionally, but clearly Champ is he's got man strength already, and Champ is gonna chump some defensive tackles in a big way. Yeah. Before we get into the rating scale, any other thoughts?
Just specifically about Champ, like in my little, research of him, I watched him in the glorified showcases and Underworld Olympics, and it did seem like at those events he wasn't really a standout. Obviously, that's not football, but it didn't seem like he was a standout. I didn't see him chirping or talking, and even when people would beat him on reps or talk trash to him, he wouldn't even look at him in the face. He wouldn't engage him. So initially, I was concerned with the dog. To be honest, I was kind of like, is he out here just, he's trying to get the reps in, et cetera, right? And then you flip on the tape where you have pads on, and it is a completely different person. So I was like, I don't care if he talks. I don't care if he looks at the guy that beat him on a rep with a snarl. Uh, he has fun playing this game, and does it in a ridiculously physical way. He also in the underwear Olympics looked relatively heavy-footed and slow-footed. With pads on, he looked like his movement skills were just fine. Getting to the second level quick, being able to flip his ass and hips wherever he wants to. So he is somebody that obviously we'll get to the ratings. I would say it would not surprise me if he ends up being the highest rated based on how this grade scale kind of works.
Yeah, I said skip the red shirt. That's the note I had on him. He's definitely playing.
Bro. That's crazy work, bro.
I'm picturing him with Brendan Curl. He's definitely getting
skip the red shirt.
This freshman. Skip the red shirt. Go and get a purple. You skip the red one.
Can we get some of the lower half weight that Champon has on him now? On like
Jaquette
Solo and Alicia Jacket, like
McCree.
Yeah, like I said it in I said it in the GC. Like Champ looks how I like. I want my offensive lineman, like particularly my interior offensive lineman. If you want what I want one of them to look like, basically in the lower half, Champ Taulea.
He's get off the bus first team for sure.
I just can't. Like
he's gonna throw you off the bus if you ain't moving fast enough.
I'm telling you, I was watching him in those little, those showcases, and I was like, dang, I was a little disappointed, and I was like, man, like from your offensive lineman, and no disrespect, but to a poly, I was like, where's the like, and then you turn on the tape, and you like, I got you. You don't even need to talk about it. I see you be about it. I got you. Good.
It's what I call white line fever.
Say Control-Alt-Delete. I didn't see nothing.
When it counts, Hood, I gotta say it. Shouts to somebody that shares my first initial. When we're talking about the Underwear Olympics, like we talking about practice.
We talking about practice,
not the game,
not the game that I love. But I got spandex on out here, man, and I'm 325, dog. A lot of stuff is jangling, and it ain't my belly. God damn it!
Oh boy,
I hate bro. I just can't. I don't understand. I get the purpose, the exposure, the interviews, but Jesus, it was such a curveball. Being like, dang, this dude don't got. He don't got hand placement. He don't got functional strength. He don't got. When you sitting here trying to grab on latex and spandex, like I get it. You throw the pads on, it's like defenders are scared of him. And has uses his length better. Like has a crazy punch, dude. Anyway, like I said, or like Darker Knight said, skip the red shirt. He's probably going to play 4 games and red shirt, but Lord have mercy. He might end up being the best offensive person in his class. Like, I think just based on position, because it's easier to dominate at tight end and offensive line than maybe like receiver. You're so reliant on so many other people. I definitely think, Champ and Vander can be some dogs out of this class.
Yep. So I'll run through my ratings real quick. I had him at a frame 4, but that's definitely you probably don't want an interior offensive lineman much taller than that. Physicality is a 4, verging on 5. Flair is a 3, verging on 4. Football IQ and instincts to this point, Hood, like on that field, the 4. And feet and flexibility a 3, and certainly an area that he could grow. So overall, I had Champ at an 18 and a 3.6 average rating. How about you?
So I actually have. He's one of the only 2 prospects that I have here. That has a 5 frame. You at the end of the day, man, you can't. There's NFL linemen that aren't his size. Or listed size. You 6'4", 325 pounds. He ain't seen 200 in anyway.
That's great.
Since 6th grade, man. Look, 325 pounds. At the end of the day, you probably don't want a guy bigger than that. At the most part, like if a guy that we would maybe consider has a better frame, like a dude that Caden Proctor type. This dude has the same frame. You know what I mean, or comparable frame. So I think that's a 5 for sure. And then you move into physicality. This was another thing where I was really struggling to give the 5, but the physicality wasn't necessarily unprecedented, but it was the primary element in his game. Physicality and length. So I guess you can add to the 5 on the frame. The length and how he uses his length in the game is very valuable too. So I got physicality at a 4. Flair. I think his playing does all the talking for him. So I think that I got that at a 3. If he did a little bit of chirping, I would have that at a 4 or 5. But I think his play intimidates defenses. You can see, defensive linemen, linebackers kind of, shriveling up when they know they got to come, when they know they got to see him. So I think that's an element of flair as well. And then football IQ instincts. I didn't see anything that really, makes him special in that regard, but I did see, easy movement skills and understanding of getting to the second level. Like I mentioned earlier, he's really good at turning his butt, and then allowing, running backs to, attack his butt. And then also too, feet and flexibility. The ability at that size to get to the next level. There are two other offensive line prospects who are 40 pounds lighter, and they have comparable moving skills to the next level. So comparing him to those guys who are also very good and have good size, he has great feet and great movement skills. So I have that at a 3. Totaling for him, was that
18.
19 or no? That's a 3.8. So I got 18 and a 3.6.
Yep.
For him. So
I'll go through mine quickly so we can move on. Frame, I mean, like I said, first team, I'll get off the bus. He's a 5. Physicality, he's a 4. Not only that, just because he's imposing, but he knows how to use his size as well. Flair, I got as a 3. Not overly impressive, but I think something that will develop with time and additional confidence, especially once he gets on campus. Football instincts, IQs, get him average score of a 3. When you're that big, it doesn't take a lot for other folks to, like Adante said, or Hood says, should say, that they want to get out your way. They ain't trying to get hit by that train. So it's easy for you to create additional gaps trying to alleviate yourself from getting on the stretcher. So I gave him a 3. Feet and flexibility, I gave him a 3.
Good defensive line.
Well, I think he's athletic. I think he does have room to improve, which is always a good thing, especially at that size. He's definitely not a slouch, but he's definitely not a finished product. That gives me a score 18, which brings him at a 3.6.
So it's, I think we were all in exact agreement on the rating for Chip Elliott. We got there slightly differently, but we were all exactly in line. Let's go ahead and move on to another 4-star prospect, and that is a 6'3", 230-pound tight end from Westland, Oregon, the highest rated player in the state of Oregon. He's depending on the service, either a 3-star or a 4-star, and that's Baron Nawane. I'll really quickly give my, certainly a quick first step out of his set. Shows a want to in blocking, and really looks to have the frame to get to that 250, 260, more of an inline guy as they look at tight end. Certainly, absolutely a raw projectable athlete. We'll be interested to see the senior film and what room, what improves for him in terms of route running and polish. Real quick, I'll run through my ratings here. I had him, with the exception of football IQ and instincts, as the tight end, I had him kind of a 3s across the board to get to a total score of 16 and an average of 3.2. What I will say in regards to Baron Nawane,
here it comes,
is that these ratings would look significantly different, or at least notably different, if we were looking at Baron Nawane as an edge.
Facts.
To be blatantly honest, I would have a hard time separating, and I mean this in a very good way, and we're not talking about defense tonight. I would have a very hard time separating Baron Nawane and Devin Hyde as the best edge prospect on film in this class. But we're talking about him on offense. I'm not saying that he absolutely can be a starter quality tight end, in my opinion. Is that blatantly like, it's a no-brainer on his tape? No. He's a projectable athlete, and so it's like, there's nothing that says, like, no, this is a long-term project, or he's going to be a contributor but never see the field at tight end. But there's a number of athletes in this, there's a number of players in this class that, or at least there's a few, for me, where we're bringing them in isn't necessarily where I like their tape most.
I totally agree with that. I like completely. I think his highlight tape started off on defense. So in my head, I was like, wait, did I put the wrong person in? Like, what? And then you see how he plays, and you're like, wait, did I put the wrong person in? Like, so it made me, like, before I could finish the first minute, I immediately went to, like, see who was recruiting him and see if there was any noise or talk, from, a lot of, like, other Husky, reporters, see if there was any talk to him playing defense. Like, that's how good he was on defense. I'll say and that also, just speaking of rating, that elevated a little bit for me his football instincts, because if you're able to play at a high level on both sides, there's a level of IQ there and understanding there. That's a little different. But on the other side of the ball, physical as a blocker, I think actually he's more of a pass catcher, as well, than he is a blocker. I just think you look at maybe what his team is asking him to do and things like that, which is kind of like pigeonholing him into a specific role. But I think if you just look at how the landscape of college football works, he could be a dominant player, not dominant, but he could be a really good player as well, be a key player as well. So, goal line weapon. And then speaking of ratings, so at 6'3", 230, phenomenal size. I would say I would give that a 3. The only thing I would say there is if he had, 1 or 2 more inches on him, you'd probably move up to 4. But the 6'3" height allows DBs and linebackers with length to take advantage. So 3. Physicality, I have it a 3. That's probably elevated. I think on offense, I would have that a 2. Physicality on defense, probably a 3-4, but I have that a 3. And then flair, I have that as a 2. While he did have swagger on defense, the position we're recruiting him at on offense, once again, like you said, Hooligan, like there's just a little bit less. I'm not going to say confidence, but there's a different element in his body language when he's playing defense versus when he's playing offense. It seems like there's a lot less thinking, and he's allowed to play faster on defense. Football instincts, I have a 3. Like I was mentioning earlier, just able to play both sides. It's impressive. Feet and flexibility, I have it a 2. only because I didn't feel like they didn't stand out. But I do feel like he has the athleticism to be able, and we're talking about tight end as well. Like obviously, if I think we're on edge, we bump that up a little bit. I think his movement skills are better for edge. But as a tight end, I think his feet and flexibility, doesn't run his feet too much as a blocker, and isn't really a juker or anything like that. So I have that as totaling out at 13 for a 2.6. Still quality starter.
Yeah, edge question mark was what the notes I had. Because I think if he was an edge, I'd have higher ratings for him. Which in my head replay now, I'm like, dang, you still could sneak him on the other side of the ball. Because I had floor.
20 more scholarships available as of today.
At his floor with his size, I saw a lot of Chris Cooley in his game, and his ceiling, I saw a lot of Jordan Reed. So he's somewhere in the middle right now.
Ooh,
that's the element to go.
Jordan Reed.
His frame, I actually gave him a 4. Seeing someone 6'3", 230, and the way he's built, I actually think he has imposing size for his frame, although it's not ideal tight end size in today's game. It's still very much can be a matchup nightmare when utilized correctly. Physicality had at a 3. Not anything overly impressive, but definitely can hold his own. And especially at that size, I believe his strength is only going to increase. Flair had at a 3. I didn't see anything overly that stood out to me that I would raise it any higher than that. Football IQ and instincts, I think they're good, not necessarily great. Like I said, if he was being graded on the other side of the ball, it might be a different conversation. Might be at a 4. Feet and flexibility, I gave it a 3, but I did like his movement skills. I could definitely see why he is a 4-star prospect. While he has room to grow, I think coming into this year, his route running can improve drastically, and he could potentially earn an additional star. And so I gave him a total of 16 out of 3.2 right now.
Yep. Yeah. I completely agree. I think that it's interesting because it's the question that I had with Vander Ploeg is how much weight can he put on that long, lanky frame, and on the flip side of it is that Barron doesn't have that height, but the width in the shoulders, like he can eat, like this is the guy you put in a college weight program and he's going to be 250, 260 and be just, and he could turn in like, and if he can block the way he comes downhill on defense, if you exercise that aggressiveness as an inline blocker, he's going to be a nice piece for us in the running game.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at, just to what you said, Husky Nation, if you go check out Jordan Reed, I think that is the perfect type of comp for him if you want to use a guy like that. I think Jordan Reed had like quarterback background, so he did a little wildcat. But other than that, just that goal line target, maybe that guy that can obviously take the direct snaps and goal line, or he just has that kind of like football acumen type of feel on defense. It's so funny on defense. I was in my head, I was like, this is Tevis Bartlett. Like I was just like, oh, this is kind of like a Tevis Bartlett kind of like motor, reckless abandon, like just great leverage.
Taking us in the Wayback Machine a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my bad. A guy who is and this is one thing that we obviously will continue, but guys like that are CFP quality starters who you're not attacking, but they're 2-star, 3-star guys. You know what I mean? So.
But this guy, and this is a 3-star, 4-star, depending on the ranking, and it's, and certainly he could solidify that 4th star, with senior film. So again, this goes to something, and I've been saying it online a number of times. I'll say it this week. I'll say it next week when we talk about defense. When you look at the class, we're going to take a brief interlude before we talk to the next prospect, or talk about the next prospect. If you look at what this coaching staff is doing right now with this class right now ranks somewhere in the same vicinity as Chris Peterson's best class at Washington, and Jed Fish and his staff are doing it with their first full cycle class at the University of Washington. This is going to be, if we stay on track, this is going to be the best first full cycle class for a new coach at Washington since Jim Lambright, who was an internal hire coming on from the Dogfather. That's what Jed Fish and his staff are doing right now.
Talk about it. I mean, CP's was in the 30s.
If not higher.
Sarge was in the late 20s, early 30s.
That's for, yeah.
And Lake was in like the 40s or 50s, wasn't he?
And Kalen,
And Kalen was in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So, So when I say things like, I am glad that the turnover happened, this is what we're talking about.
And before we go any further, because it's come from that group of feathered people
mallards
to the south, like, oh, but I thought you guys said recruiting didn't matter. No. That's not what any Washington fan said. We didn't say recruiting didn't matter. We just said it wasn't the only thing that mattered. And that great recruiting could be overcome by great coaching and development. And the optimal situation is to have great recruiting, great coaching, great development. All of the above.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe me that great coaching and development can overcome great recruiting, I point you to the last 3 Washington-Oregon games.
Yep.
I point you to Washington, Texas.
I point you to the national championship game where you had 2 teams that were playing at the highest level who subscribed to that. You know what I mean? Like, I point you to the NFL draft picks of Michigan, Utah, Iowa, Wisconsin, Washington. You know, I think there's something to be said of the teams that do it that way. You know, when it seems like the credit only goes to the guys that, you know, do it the flashy and high profile way. Like, there's people that do it the dirty dog way, and it's the harder way, and they need to have their voices and their processes elevated just as much as the other side, if it's equally or relatively equally as successful.
Well, and the important factor is, and where Washington is in a position to capitalize as long as the staff is here, is because they've proven that they can develop and coach. It's where you truly get into dangerous territory in the best way possible is staffs that can do all three and take high level talent and take the same level of put the same level of coaching development and progression into high level talent from the get-go. But we're not going to say that this next guy is not high level talent, because he is. And that's moving on to a 4-star 6 foot 190 pound receiver, a .9004 composite. Started at Corona del Sol, now at IMG Academy down in Florida, and that is Raiden Vine-Sprite. I'm going to ask to go first on this one.
I was just about to say that. I was like, Hooligan? This your dog. This your acronym right here.
If your over-the-top defender misses the coverage of the tackle, get your kick return team ready.
You better get them glass Rams.
Because they're going to be needed after the PAT, because if your over-the-top guy ain't there, it's in the house. The thing that, this dude just can fly. Just can fly. Like, not only runs away from people, but, like, continues to run away from people all the way to the goal line. The other thing that really stuck out to me, and this is something that I'm just a nerd for in terms of wide receiver film, the dude's got blocking highlights, and he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he takes his 6 foot 190 pounds and he throws it right into the center of people's chests. The body control.
Yep.
I've looked, I believe I've caught up, and I have watched every wide receiver. I've watched film for every wide receiver that we've offered. His is my 3rd favorite. And that's, I think, Quincy Porter committed to Ohio State, a little school that knows a little something about wide receivers. And then it was basically splitting hairs between he and Taz Williams. Raiden Vine-Sprite is going to be an absolute dude. So I will real quick do my rankings here. So for frame, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but certainly starter level college receivers all over that are 6 foot, 190 pounds. Physicality to me was a 4. And again, this is not just like, yes, it's the blocking and his willingness to use his size and his weight, but it's the speed. That's one of the things I look for in wide receivers. The body control, he makes an adjustment. I think it's about midway through his highlight tape to lay out for a ball. So that for me, the physicality was the 4. Raiden, to this point, has the only 5 that I have given for anyone in this class, and that's a Flair 5. His tape pops. Get at me if you disagree, but I'm going to school you. Football IQ instincts is a 4 for me, and the feet and flexibility is a 4. Given I gave Raiden a 20 overall with an average rating of 4. Like, this is a guy that properly developed in the right offensive system. This dude could be an all-conference player, left, right, and center.
Man, look, it's funny because, as soon as Chris Lawson committed, you got to think RVB has been committed for a while. So as soon as Chris Lawson committed, I watched Chris Lawson and I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. And I think it was the first conversation I might have had was with you, and you were like, yeah.
We texted about it.
Yeah, you were like coupling him with RVB. Like, man, have you watched RVB? And in my head, I was like, yeah, but I guess that was quite a while ago. Let me go. And I was like, okay, like,
Oh,
how you get both of these dudes plus Plug, like, and I think I said we were talking about, like, we were just like, what is a 5-star receiver then? Like, what does that even mean? And then it drew me to like, oh yeah, well sometimes classes are less than this, that, and the other. Maybe 1 through 20 is tough to kind of decipher through. So yeah, man, I'll just speak to what I liked about him. I really loved, being a boxing fan, some of my favorite fighters, you can be on an equal level with a guy up until round 6 or 7. And then once you kind of raise the intensity to see if that guy can take it to the next level, that's where you separate yourself. You're willing to get hurt more than another guy is. You're willing to throw your hands more than another guy is. And I think that's what RVB does. I think he takes, his defenders or his defensive coordinator into deep waters, and he's like, can you match my level of intensity? Whether that's blocking, whether that's full speed on this route, whether even if it's a decoy route, can you keep up with my style of play and my intense level of play? So that part I really, really loved about his game. So I wrote down, obviously, like, turns a lot of shallow targets into big plays. So for us, I kind of envision like, he's a conversion down demon, you know what I mean? And can turn conversion down stuff into long plays. A true pro with pro size, athleticism, and competitive nature. So in regards to his ratings, just to cut it short, I have 4s across the board for everything, and I have him as our highest rated, the highest rated overall for us. And to frame, now obviously we talk about freaks or whatnot. I think the primary differentiator between him and Lawson is the weight. Just being listed at that 190, and he's probably going to get bigger, so more of a physically imposing kind of guy. So I do have a 4. I do have Lawson at a 4 too, but I do have him as a 4. Physicality, showed blocking highlights. I gave Lawson a 3 there because I didn't see any blocking highlights, so elevated that there. Flair 4, sorry, Hooli. Flair 4 would score. Sometimes let you know about it, but I liked the fact that when he had you beat, he would just start jogging on you. Love that. Football IQ, instincts. You're not at IMG if you're not, if you don't have the pedigree to be there at the end of the day. And a small little tidbit I want to let people know is we have a quarterback that's starting at Mater Dei, and then this receiver starts at IMG. So if you want to talk about pedigree, I don't give a damn about your recruiting rankings or anything like that. These are people that are high pressure situations and high pressure only football relative schools. So don't care what you say. So a total of 24 overall.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, it's based on the number, but the way I watched him play too. But I seen a mix of Odell and I actually seen a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but more explosive in his game. He's built low, but he plays and runs way more strong than he looks. So for his frame, I gave it 3. Although he's not big for a receiver, he's definitely have really good college size. At 6 foot, 190 pounds, physicality, I gave a 4. Not only at the catch point, but you can tell he plays fearless, which I love in a receiver. He's not afraid to make the big play, and when he does, with his flair, he definitely let you know about it. Like Hood was saying, he'll jog on you, he'll look back, he'll do everything but check up the piece on. Football IQ and instincts, you can tell he's natural with the ball in his hands, knows how to set up his blocks, knows how to play with his speeds, and he's effortless in and out of his breaks. Feet and flexibility, he is one of the few that I gave a 5. I didn't see any false steps, whether he's being pressed or he had to make a quick cut or a quick decision on the run. So I think he's got elite as far as IQ and feet and flexibility when you tie the two together. So I gave him a 5 there because I didn't give him a 5 on IQ. So for a total score of 20, which gave him a 4 flat overall.
Yo, I know you guys are excited for this too, but I think what I kind of mentioned earlier is just seeing him compete at IMG, just seeing Dash compete at Modern Day. Like, I think we're going to get a different indication of these numbers. And I think if there's anybody that changes on these ratings, it's those two, because they're stepping up in class at the high school level. So we're going to really see if they are what, we think they are.
Yep. All right. Well, we're talking a lot tonight, so let's move right along. And the next offensive commit we just talked about, and it is Modern Day's quarterback, 6'1", 215-pound quarterback from Modern Day, and that's Dash Byerly. He is he's a .8836 composite 3-star, verging on 4. Who wants to start on their quick notes on Dash? No pun intended.
Well, Hood, no, this is my guy. So I've been I've been talking to Dash for a little over a year now. If all the Sound the Siren fans out there, if you can remember, go back and do your research, man. I was telling you the trajectory he had last year when I started to hear little rumblings about what he was doing now in California. Is crazy talented, powerful arm, effortless delivery. Not only that, though, the way this kid moves on the run, I mean, we don't teach him how to slide up here, but he definitely isn't afraid to put his face in the fan, which I love out of a quarterback. He's competitive. People call him a natural leader. He's the guy that's helping, one of the few guys that are helping recruit for this class as well. So definitely show him some love on Twitter when you can. With his frame, I gave him a 3. If he was 6'3", 6'4", I definitely would change that to a 4, but 6'1", 215 is plenty big enough. I know a high school, sometimes they can inflate that, so we're going to leave that at a 3. He's 6'1" in my book. Physicality, gave a 4. Like I said, on the run, he's not afraid to lower his shoulder. He knows how to use his 215 pounds, and if you're in his way, he's definitely going to run through you to get those tough yards. I love that out of a quarterback. He's feisty. He definitely has flair. He'll flex on you if he needs to. If it's a first down and then he knows it was a tough first down, he's definitely going to let you know in his face. His teammates always seem to rally around him when you watch him on tape as well, which lets you know he's a likable guy. Football IQ and instincts, I think his talent and what's setting him apart right now and the reason for his ascent is the way he can process information. I think he's a fast processor. Definitely gets the ball in his hands when he needs to, but definitely has flair for the dramatic with big plays. When he does hold on to the ball, if nothing's there, that's when you kind of see the electricity with his feet. Feet and flexibility, have it as a 4. Always want to see a quarterback on the run, but if he is on the run, I definitely want that to be Dash. So I gave him a total score of 19. We gave him a total rating of 3.8.
Okay, I like that. I think he's underrated on like the ranking profiles, but I think amongst like a lot of talent evaluators who've gone to camps and stuff like that, I think he's perfectly rated. I think a lot of those guys think highly of him. So just a couple notes. I just felt like this this coaching staff definitely has a type. We'll get to that with another TV commute as well. A lot of these pass first tendencies, coupled with top end mobility and running ability, but these guys have top end running ability and they're pass first, which is kind of uncommon. I felt like he just what you're mentioning, Darker Knight was. I felt like he was extremely poised. You know, kind of like a lot of things moving fast around him while he's moving at a comfortable speed, and it makes a ton of sense. He's going to modern day. You know, to be able to balance a lot of that pageantry and prestige on his shoulders with like-minded guys. So, like I said, we'll be able to see what he's really made of at the highest level of leading and championship level. So, in regards to frame, you had him at a 3. I had him at a 2. Feel like the weight is legit, maybe a little bit lighter, but 6'1", still on the shorter side there. Even 6'2" gives you a 3, and above that is probably 4'5", 4'5". But physicality, you know, you 215, you know, in high school, that's you're big as hell. For any position, that's the same size as a lot of the linebacker recruits that we have. So
and bigger than some that we've had.
Bigger than some, and you can even see like. You can even see in like in his frame, like he can get bigger too. So it's kind of weird. Like he's got interesting stocky kind of build. So frame 2, physicality 4. His running style is definitely physical. To your point, he's definitely got the slide. Flair, same thing. When you're running full speed, only a couple people I've ever seen run with the ball out like that. One being Caleb Williams. He's definitely a guy that runs with the ball while he's running. So that's flair and you know, risky. Football IQ instincts. I feel like I gave that a 3, and I feel like at the end of the day, he's challenging himself, obviously, with his transfer to, you know, for a lot of people improve this. And then feet and flexibility. You're not mobile in the way that he is without quality feet and flexibility, so I have that as a 4. Totaling 17 for a 3.4 rating. So, quality starter.
Yeah, absolutely. I might say something that's going to shock some people. Dash reminds me a lot of good Bo Nix.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, good Bo Nix, good arm in anticipation, throws more kind of at what looked to be kind of a 3/4 arm.
A 3/4.
Yep. Really good ball placement and touch. Darker Knight, to your point, very good off platform. But he definitely has a decent fastball when he needs it. So there's a lot to like here with Dash. Ratings wise, frame, I had him at a frame 3. You know, but that's to the point. Like, the staff definitely seems to like, you know, I think we were talking about it a little bit with Raiden. Like, he's 6'1", 190, but like Jonah Coleman is kind of a prototype for this staff. Maybe not the tallest guys in the world, but other than John Richardson particularly tends to find a few long guys for his room. But height is not necessarily the first requirement for these guys, but they look for football players and they look for that physicality in that regard. You know, so certainly from, you know, physicality, which includes the arm talent for me for a quarterback, it's there. It's not Michael Penix, it's not Jacob Eason, but it doesn't need to be, particularly with the mobility skills and his ability to move within the pocket and find platforms and find ways to get the ball out. So for me, a frame 3, a physicality 3, a flair 4, a football and IQ and instincts 4, and a feet and flexibility 4. Really also showed in some of that escapability, like just the subtle movements, the wiggle to get through a hole, and escape downfield. Overall an 18 for Dash, so an average of 3.6. So again, very much a solid, projectable starter with upside. All right, let's keep it moving right along. We'll talk about Deji Ajose. This is one of those, you know, we've got a number of just athletes in this class that could end up on either side of the ball. I think we're looking at him right now as a wide receiver, so let's talk about him as such. 6 foot, 270 pounds, a .8756 composite 3-star from Oakland, California. Briefly, definitely good hands. To me, he plays bigger than, like, not necessarily bigger than his height, but definitely bigger than the listed weight. Pretty explosive 1 or 2 step acceleration up to top speed, and does have some ability to run away.
What's the I don't know why I'm whiffing on this. What's his defensive position? Just DB?
I think I think they would project him at like a DB or a safety maybe.
The safety?
But I think we're looking
He
at
could
him
play. I
primarily
think
as
he
a
could play
receiver, I
corner.
believe.
He's definitely athletic enough to play corner.
Yeah. I got him athletic enough to play corner, but obviously the higher ceiling would be at safety. But to just Desi, I think he's definitely over 170. Like, there's no way in hell he's 170 pounds. Like, wide shoulders. If you watch him in like interviews and stuff like that, he's like got a chiseled frame. The 170 is probably super outdated. I would even say 185, 190, even potentially 195. Like, he's the type of kid that's like a weight room guy. He's relying on physicality to be better than you. At the catch point, with body nuance within routes, even on defense, like he's reliant on his physicality. So I think he's a guy that is heavier than that and can probably put on more weight. So in regards to just some quick notes, it's funny because I put football player. Reminds me of former Alpha Dog Jalen Polk. Listed as an athlete, will start at receiver. Oh, I guess I knew his dang defense positions, but I said on defense, he lines up everywhere from edge, linebacker, slot corner. So that just kind of goes to give you an indication of his football IQ and acumen. So moving into his ratings, listed as an athlete. Frame, the 170, I think, is a big cap. So, being 6'2", you already win, but you're probably 185, 190, if not heavier, like based on the way you were playing and going into your senior year. So I got that frame of 4. Okay, that frame of 4, physicality 4. That's the name of his game. Flair, I did give him a 2. He's just workman. Now I would say like Jalen Polk would probably have a flair 3-4. And I think he's as demonstrative as him, but I don't know if he's gonna if that's gonna translate to the next level the same way. Let me see. Football instincts I have as a 3. I feel like he kind of relies on him being a football player. So I think that the football IQ is what allows him to separate himself and his physical size. Feet and flexibility, Darker Knight said that he has, it takes 1, 2, 3 steps and he's in full acceleration. In my notes I had, he's running at the same speed all the time. So, for me, that just tells me that somebody, with respect, that tells me that somebody doesn't have a ton of gears. It's kind of one gear, and it is what it is. So I have that as a 2, totaling out for a score of 15, so a 3 overall.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my favorite prospects that we have. Like I said, looking at his size, I'm willing to bet somebody he's not 170 pounds. He definitely looks and plays much bigger than what he is. As a receiver, you could tell he's heavy-handed. You could tell a lot of corners do not like to press him because he is physical. So as for his physicality, I had that as a 4. So I had his frame as a 4, as physicality as a 4. Flair as a 2. I didn't see much yapping necessarily back and forth, but when you play like him and look like him, I don't think others really want that smoke anyway. His football instincts, I just had an IQ I had as a 3, just kind of above average, but not anything overly spectacular. But I do think he has one of the higher ceilings of anyone in this class because the fact that he is an athlete, and I could see him playing a number of positions or utilized a number of different ways. He doesn't just have to be an X or a Z or a Y. He can definitely be placed all over the place and make plays for us. Feet and flexibility, I gave it 3. Like Tay said, while he does run by you, he doesn't show enough stop-start and or turn and flip to 4th or 5th gear enough to me, but he's plenty fast. I believe he was a 10.8 100-meter guy, so he's not slow by any means. So I gave him a total score of 16, which gave him a total composite score of 3 points.
Yeah, and that's where I had him as well. I had him at 3s across the board, with the exception of physicality, which I had him at 4. So, certainly somebody that you could project to be a starter and a quality receiver, without question. Let's move right along and talking about types, and that is Treston Keeney McMillan. He is 5'10", 210-pound quarterback from Hawaii. Find my notes here momentarily. 0.87 composite, 3-star. Briefly, can you say Noah Fafita 2.0? Not quite as much necessarily on the fastball, but probably a better runner than Noah. For a second quarterback in a class, it's absolutely a gamble worth taking, and not that big of a gamble. This guy's got a running back frame at quarterback. Let's just call it a buck.
Yeah, dash to shit.
This guy's a running back playing quarterback, but with an arm to play quarterback. I'll briefly run through my rating. So I did have him as a frame 2, although if I could do a 2.5, it would be there given the width. We'll put it that the musculature and he's built like a fire hydrant. Physicality a 3, flair a 3, football IQ and instincts is a 4. Definitely that shows in some of his the vision that he made on some of his runs, but definitely still looks to get the ball downfield. And then feet and flexibility a 3 and overall a 15. So just a 15 at 3s across the board, or ultimately an average of 3 rating. Definitely can see him being a starter at the college level. He's going to have some significant competition though between Damon Williams and Dash Byerly, but a player that I definitely like.
So to Treston, Kenny McMillan, obviously a type. You were saying Noah Fafita. I see that as well. I think Noah has a little bit better eyes and obviously a little bit better arm. I think Treston is going to be working through, a lot of the mechanics of the position at the next level, just to maybe increase that arm strength. Also, better the eyes. I'll kind of get to the ratings. At 5'10", 5'10", 210, albeit while the weight is great, the height is not ideal. And at the end of the day, a guy like Noah Fafita can have success, but coming into college, it's definitely a demerit. Keeping it a buck. So I got that as a 1. To be honest, physicality averages a 3. You're not 210 without being physical. Physicality is also built in his running style as well. Flair, any running quarterback has some, element of flair. He has lateral agility. He also has the size to run you over. Those types of things. Football IQ and instincts. I have as a 2. And now I bumped it up to a 2 because of the running ability. I would associate that with like your instincts, your running instincts. But I did notice a trend that if anything was beyond 20, 25 yards, it was a struggle for his eyes. So his eyes were really, really comfortable. I'd say 20, 25 yards and in. And even when he's on the run, it just seemed like, it was the shallow throws that he was more comfortable with on the run or from the pocket. So I don't know if that's a trust your arm type thing or if that's just where his eyes kind of drop and naturally go just because maybe of his size. So feet flexibility, there's no way you're that fast, fluid, and mobile without having some decent feet. So I got that as a 3. We're totaling that 12 for a total of 2.
Yeah, my comparison doppelganger to him was Jeremiah Masoli. I know, forgive me, Husky fans, but that's who he reminded me of with his size and play style. Definitely a project, but someone you can kind of develop and kind of see what you get with him. Frame I had as a 2. While you're 210 pounds, you're only 5'10", so I mean you're in that kind of Russell Wilson-ish range, Jeremiah Masoli range. Physicality has a 3. Definitely not afraid to put his face in the fan, like I said earlier. Definitely plays with, he definitely knows how to use his weight. He's not shy from running and getting those tough yards. Flair, This play has a 3. This could have easily been a 2, but anyone willing to run and consistently kind of put their body through what he does, I have a lot of respect for. Football IQ and instincts, I think, while talented, while he does have a live arm, he's not as consistent as you'd want. He's kind of limited while throwing the ball, so I kind of had him at 2 right now, with that being his most room to grow. Feet and flexibility had as a 3. Obviously, you can run like him. You can't be anything lower than a 3, in my opinion, which gave him a total score of 13 and a total composite of 2.6.
2 offensive line, another interior offensive line. Oh, actually, we're skipping ahead. Next one is a athlete that they project probably to be a slot receiver, and that's Desmond Roebuck. 5'10", 170 pounds from Arizona. Second.
He's playing receiver.
It's what the rumor is.
Okay.
We're looking. It's the second prospect in this class that I think I like the tape on defense more than I like it on offense. But in regards to on that side of things, he is a .86 composite, 3-star from Marana, Arizona. High points to football really well. Looks to have pretty explosive ups. Like I said, I prefer his tape on the defensive side, but could certainly see a slot and underneath receiver in Desmond's tape. Real quick with the ratings, I did have him. He does look, the frame just looks at 5'10" and 170 pounds. He looks pretty slight. It's not a complete deal breaker, but that was a 2 for me. Physicality, and then everything else across the board was about a 3. I think more of a project. Straight head comparisons to players of a similar body type. I saw a little more, like if we're looking at him as a receiver, I saw a little more upside, and a couple of different things. And when we were looking at Keith Reynolds a couple of years ago, and that's kind of to some extent, like in terms of the younger guys in this class, that's one of the I look at at Keith Reynolds and I look at Jason Robinson and do that. If we're looking at a slot receiver, and that's just what I see. That's not saying that Desmond can't be a very capable slot receiver for us. Like I said, I just happen to like his tape a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball, as more kind of that nickel corner with his athleticism and leaping ability.
For me, I definitely assumed that he was going to play defense, and then obviously went and did a little research, found that he was going to be playing offense, or that's what he was primarily recruited as. For him, just I would say watching, just to your point, I did feel a lot of Keith Reynolds vibes. What I will say is Keith was on like a not really good team and was the best player on his team and did everything for his team. Quarterback, running back, receiver, whatever he needed to do to make the ball move. And I think he even won Offensive Player of the Year his junior year in his league while they won 1 or 2 games. So I do think there's levels to the size football kind of athlete. And I do feel like I did like the tape a little bit more on defense. I think there was more things that stood out on defense, and on offense, it seemed like there wasn't something that kind of separated him from everybody else. Whereas defense, he kind of identified plays faster. He's a phenomenal tackler. I said I had in my notes, and I was telling the Darker Knight that he will abuse your thigh pads for being that small. He attacks your shin, attacks your thigh pads with great leverage and great discipline. It's not just straight ankle by in, like it's he understands his size, etc. So given the ratings on the offensive side of the ball, I think the ratings on the defensive side of the ball would bump up a little bit. But in regards to frame, I did give a 2. He is a receiver, but we are recruiting him as a gadget slot guy. So if we're trying to be comparable in that regard, what's a 5 slot? You know what I mean? What's a 5 slot? Like Cooper Kupp? Yeah, that's kind of tough. That's kind of tough. Like, what's a 5 slot? And then so I gave that a 2. Physicality, I gave it 2. I think obviously you slide a defense, I would bump that up maybe to a 3. Flair, I gave a 2. Once again, I think on defense you may give that a 3. Football instincts IQ, I gave a 3. And I think I'll actually revise that. I'll once again kind of give that a 2. I think that would be a 3 if it was on defense. I think he plays much faster. I think his
Yep.
eyes are much faster on defense. And then once again, to feet and flexibility. I feel like on offense, when they try to do the gadget stuff with him, he wasn't really, adept at making maybe even the first or second person miss. So I didn't see the crazy footwork there, but once again on defense, I saw a comfortability and with footwork and speed on that. So total score of 10 with a 2 overall.
And I think I forgot to mention that, so I had him at a 14 and at like a 2.8 again. I like it a lot more on the defensive side of the ball. And I think also what Bear's mentioning in this discussion with, particularly with the increase in the scholarship limit, there's a lot more rolls of the dice that a staff can take, and where you just take somebody that is an athlete and ultimately you figure out where the best fit is once they get to campus.
Correct.
So,
and Hooligan, one thing I talked to Darker Knight pre-show about was one thing I don't want to kind of come to fruition from this is, if a kid is really, really hard pressed on playing receiver, but people like us or people like others may make a comment, oh man, I like you at edge. Oh man, I like you at linebacker. That's not saying you won't be a quality receiver. It's just saying based on your junior year of high school, you know what I mean? And what we've seen, that's just how we personally feel. Now, your senior year, you can, let's say, work on one side of the ball and refine, being a receiver. And it's like, oh, yep, boom, there's the receiver I was looking at. So specifically, to a guy like Desmond, your senior year can have a completely different, look than your junior year in regards to your offensive production. So once we see that, once we kind of get that data set, then we can obviously have fluid rankings.
And honestly, we want to see it.
Facts.
You're committed to the University of Washington. We are a fan of yours.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to be successful, and wherever that is, we want you to be successful. Like it harkens back to some of the conversations that we had in the early eras of our podcast, where we were seeing things in the athletic department that we didn't like, and that we wanted the athletic department to do better or to see more evidence of. That's all we're saying. Like this is something like the kids know, like they're aware of the ranking systems. Like I guarantee you, like they're not going to be as bothered by what we say is
the rankings,
than the ranking systems that in terms of what coaches. Yeah, like that's just, this is just our perspectives. Of like there is a, what we see on tape is what we see on tape, and this moment it's a snapshot. It's not a permanent, like this is what we think from here forward. But Darker Knight, go ahead.
No, I had him as an athlete. He's quicker than fast. I like you guys said, I liked him better on defense as potentially a nickel slot guy or a safety, because I do see the upside. He's one of the few carryovers from Arizona where they actually were recruiting them when they were on that staff. So Kevin Cummins sees a lot in this guy. He sees the potential that most don't see right now. So we're just gonna trust in him as a guru he is, and think that he has the ability to be a star. So for me, when I look at his frame, I gave him a 2. 5'10", 170. That's a average high school kind of skill guy as far as size. Physicality, I gave a 3. That's primarily more or less what I've seen on defense. He definitely, for his size, he's not afraid to roll his sleeves up and get dirty. So I definitely see upside, obviously, at both sides of the ball, but I definitely see the want to. Flair, I gave a 3. For anyone playing both sides of the ball, you have to have some sort of flair to do that, and pride. He takes pride in what he does to do that. So you always want to have the best athletes on the field, and the fact he plays both ways says a lot, especially down in Arizona. football IQ and instincts, I gave a 3. Just projected average. I didn't see anything overly great. He does have some amazing plays on his highlight tape, but I need to see a little bit more before I can bump that score up. And feet and flexibility, I gave a 3. He's definitely fast enough. He's not, I wouldn't say he's an elite athlete, which provides me a total score of 14 and gave him a total composite of 2.8.
Yep. That's exactly where I landed with Desmond as well. And again, there's probably a couple areas where that would bump up maybe to a 15 or 16 on the defensive side of the ball if we were evaluating it a nickel corner as opposed to a slot receiver. But let's move right along to a 6'6", 275-pound offensive lineman from San Juan Capistrano, and 7'8" composite, and that is Jake Flores, one of the earliest commits in this class. Definitely moves well, good feet, looks to get to the second level. Seems to have pretty sticky hands, and pretty hard to disengage for a defensive lineman. So those are my brief thoughts on Jake, but I open it up to you, gentlemen.
So it's crazy because I'm like looking at my ratings, and you mentioned the sticky hands comment, and it was like, man, should I bump up the physicality? But we'll leave it where it's at now. So for Jake, the main thing I like, obviously we're gonna rate the frame, but I love the frame for somebody who's considered interior. There is a lot of size, or as far as height. But an offensive lineman, in my opinion, coming in around 275, 285 is ideal. Especially with that height, because then you can, based on movement skills, you can have that versatility. You know what I mean? And I think with Scott Huff, one thing we really, really saw up in Washington was a lot of positional versatility on the offensive line. And while I haven't seen that trend with Brennan Carroll. I do think like elements of that will be adopted. Especially with, obviously a lot of those spots going to be open this year, next year, the following year. There's a lot of attrition and people coming in that, a lot of turnover there that could potentially benefit for a guy like Jake. So I got frame. I got frame at a 3. That height is ideal for me. The weight listed 275 for a high school guy. That is ideal for me. It allows you to kind of either put on healthy weight, and then physicality I was a 3. You mentioned the sticky hands. That is real life. Very, very sticky. Once he kind of gets his hands on you, it's a wrap. Especially when he gets to the second level, and there are defenders that are a little smaller. And it's funny that you mentioned the second level because I feel like that's his bread and butter. I think like his ability to get to match the athleticism. I think his primary ability is athleticism, but to match the athleticism of those smaller defenders and also meet them at their leverage is very impressive. And then so and then I got Flair at a 2. There's not a lot of flair to his game. There's not a lot of flair to a lot of offensive linemen's game, to be honest. But yeah, so Flair at 2. Football instincts I have as a 3. Like we've all said, like there's this knack to kind of get to that second level, in my opinion. Quickly assist the first level, hit that second level. Feet flexibility, I think I have a 3. This was the one that I was essentially kind of hard pressed to give a 4 there. And you know what? In hindsight, I definitely will give that a 4. So I'll give that a 4.
I did.
And the reason being is because of the mobility. I think there is a unique mobility here with Jake. He could easily be one of the first offensive linemen to touch the field out of this class. Off the strength of his movement skills. Obviously, Champ already has the size, but off the strength of his movement skills and availability on the interior, I think he could pop for sure.
Yeah, I have, man, you can't teach that frame, 6'6", 275, so I actually gave him a 4 there. That's a hell of a building block to have a guy come in with that type of frame. Physicality have a 3. Although he's overly athletic for his size, I don't see him as being an overly physical guy, at least not this point in his development. But I think he does have that upside. Flair I had as a 2 as well. I think he's a lunch pail type of guy, but he's not. He's not Richie Incognito. Football IQ and instincts, I had that as a 3. I think he definitely knows leverage as far as how to turn and run his feet to open up holes for his back and or protect his quarterback's blind side. Feet flexibility, I actually had that as a 4 because of his movement skills, and I think that's only gonna get better. And as long as he put on that good weight once he gets on campus and continue to keep the athleticism or become more athletic, I think he could be really scary for future years. So I gave him a total score of 16 with a total composite of 3 points.
Yep. Yeah,
he's one of the guys I think is a real sleeper out of this class for sure.
Yep. I had him as a 16 as well, and I got there with 3s for frame and physicality. Again, a 2 for flair. Both, I think and then like I gave him 4s for both football IQ and instincts and feet flexibility, and it's that not only that mobility and the feet and the flexibility to get to the second level and get to the second level quickly, it's that not only, hey, like I got somebody, it's the instincts to be like, okay, I blocked my initial assignment, who else do I go get? And then he processes that quickly and gets to it. He uses the athleticism that he has to get there. So I ultimately also had him at a 16 and a 3.2. But we can move right along to a guy that he is going to be blocking for. And that's a 6'2", 195-pound running back, Julian McMahon. Apologize, I don't have the composite and 3-star, but I don't have the composite number right in front of me. Again, the staff kind of has a couple of types, and they also certainly like, if you look at Jonah Coleman as the thicker running back, and then they have a Jordan Washington where they've got the speed back, and then you have Adam Muhammad, who is a tall and muscular back, and Julian McMahon is just another Adam Muhammad on the way. Catches the ball, really versatile, catches the ball well out of the backfield, is physical, can run well. Really no complaints about Julian McMahon. Overall, I had him at a 16 overall as well, with 3s across the board, with the exception of football IQ and instincts. It's that catching ability out of the backfield. Pretty good route runner out of the backfield. But a lot to like with Julian McMahon as right now the only back in this class, but I know we're certainly looking at a couple more, and there's definitely some super exciting tape in the guys that we pursued as well. In addition, and that's not taking anything away from Julian McMahon. I would say Julian McMahon by himself is a good running back class. You pair Julian McMahon with one of the other guys we're looking at, that gets to the great level territory. That gets to like what Ohio State has in their room. Yep. If you do 2 with what we have already, you add 2 more this year, you're going to get dangerous in that room in a big, big hurry.
Man, to be honest with you, I really struggled to. He's a guy where you have to really taper expectations for, because what I saw, like running back, at the end of the day, you're relying on so many people, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to have it or not. And I truly feel like Julian McMahon does have it. At the high school level, the only thing I'll say is there are times where he has to take an extra cut, an extra step with a foot. And just because that agility may not fully be there, and it's able to help in high school, but holistically, when you think about his skill set, granted, he does that every now and then, but there are times where he takes a couple choppy steps, cuts, and explodes. There's times where he doesn't break stride, cuts, and explodes. I really, really love the way that he's able to change the pace of his strides. That's very difficult. I'm a person who ran track, and I had to adapt to the football striding. Because it's a lot more stop and start, so you can't fully lift knee, those types of things. And he has a really, really good way of, when he's in the open field, really lifting the knee, really extending that stride. And then when he's in, when he's bursting through a hole or trying to be patient, he really has some effective, more choppier running back kind of steps. So, in regarding the ranking, I have a total of. At the moment, I have a total of 13 for a score of 2.6. I'm definitely confident that that would go up. Um, so I have the frame at a 3. That could be something that could easily potentially be a 4. I mean, you're 6'2", 195. What better is there to get at the high school level coming in? Physicality, I have as a 3. I wouldn't say that he's super physical. I would say that he has a lot of contact balance. Um, it's not so much him breaking like big hits or him breaking people that have rap tackles on him. It's more so that you don't really get a clean kind of hit on his lower body or his upper body. So, and then Flair, I have as a 2. He just is once again a lunch field guy. Brings it's all about football. It seems football instincts. I have as a 2, but you know what? I think that's where it is. I think that's where we'll actually bump that up to a 3. I guess that's where I'll find that at. So the football instincts, I love the vision. I love the footwork at in the hole as well. Footwork and I guess moving to footwork and flexibility. Footwork and flexibility. A real fluid athlete. You don't need to be a blazer to be a running back. And he's got functional speed, so he definitely can be somebody that is a part of a running back rotation for sure. RB1, 2, or 3 in a successful running.
Yeah, for me, I had 3s across the board, aside from Flair, where I had a 2. I actually love his frame. That 6'2", 195 kind of has that frame where he can put 20 pounds on, and you kind of have that Adrian Peterson like physique. Not saying he's going to be Adrian Peterson, but the similar size while in high school. That 195, 200 pounds to be 6'2" is really encouraging. With his development, there's a ton of upside there, and I mean, nothing overly that stood out. Like I said, great, good speed, not great speed. Like Hood mentioned before, impressive contact balance through the hole. Not overly decisive as you'd want right now, but that's okay. So he has another year to develop. So you can kind of see like where he has to grow. So I gave him a total score of 14, which gave him a total composite of 2.8.
And the last offensive commit of the class, and one of the most recent, and that is from Kennedy Catholic. We're going back. Let's hope it works out a lot better for this one than it did for the other ones, but best of luck to all of them. And that is Lowen Coleman Brusa, offensive tackle, offensive lineman, 6'5", 285, a .851, one composite from Burien and Kennedy Catholic. Honestly, I thought he was a pretty good mover. As we look kind of look forward, and I'm going to call out a couple of things that I'm going to be looking for in the senior tape. I want to just definitely see a lot more pass pro. Particularly, I want to see more of the kick slide and the footwork. He's got definitely some nasty to him, and I definitely would like to see that manifest more. Particularly, like we talked about, Jake Flores having sticky hands. I didn't necessarily see that as much with Lowen, but he uses his size well. Certainly a projectable athlete, and I definitely look at it and I see probably with that question mark in terms of the pass protection technique, I would certainly expect that he's probably got more of a future inside rather than outside as he adds weight. But just want to see kind of some of that, the nasty to his disposition, just show up a little bit more honestly, in the technique and the hand punch. But no concerns. In terms of ratings, I had him basically at 3s across the board, with the exception of physicality. I'm just looking for a little bit more of. It's clear that he wants to dominate a game. I just want to see it a little bit more from like honestly, his physicality and his nasty shows up more at the second level, where he just kind of engulfs people. I want to see a little bit more of that nasty in just putting his hands into his first blocking assignment, into their chest and putting them away, as opposed to engulfing and pancaking.
I really appreciate that thought process. I saw the exact same thing. With frame, I have a 3. I feel like you listed 6'5", 285. an inch less than Flores, 10 pounds heavier. You're most likely projecting to the inside, in my opinion, as well, albeit listed at tackle. You have more like, guard skill set. Seems like you have solid feet. And then physicality, same thing. I have as a 2. I did see, the getting to the second level and things like that. But great points with, you have a lot more energy with the second level than you do with the first level. So you're respectfully, obviously, you're picking on the linebackers a little bit more. And this year, I would say I would love to see him get his bully on with guys who are like sized or comparable sized or on the defensive line. Flair, I have as a 1. Once again, this is a guy that just kind of gets the job done. And I really appreciate it. For an offensive line, I didn't really see where he was rated, but it's really interesting watching him play. You can see the potential of 3-4 years in a program, him playing at a pretty high level for sure. So feet and flexibility. I have as a 1 as well. Didn't find him a driver of his feet once on contact on that first level. Like I said, he definitely had different energy with the second level. And then football instincts I have as a 3. I do feel like he has a decent understanding of the game. It's more so just you're in infantile stages of your football acumen and football development, where you're going to have to kind of put the athleticism to match those instincts and that football IQ for sure. That's a total of 10 with an average of 2.
Yeah. And I did both feet flexibility down to a 2, so I had it at a 13 and a 2.6 average. I mean, ultimately, again, it's like this is the thing where it's like the number of times that you're going to see an offensive lineman come out as a completely finished product, the number of times you pop on the tape and you're going to see Troy Finau is rare.
Facts.
Or not Troy Finau.
I had an identical score to you, Hooligan. 13.
Troy Fontanu. Sorry, I'm thinking of Pocky Finau, who, when you talk about hand punch and
I know
dominating
who you were talking about.
I was thinking Troy. I was thinking Troy and thought about Pocky because Pocky had a few things at 4.
You was thinking of mini Troy.
So anyway, go ahead, Darker Knight.
Troy Jr.
Little mini Troy.
They had 3 frame, 6'5", 285 is still really good size for any offensive lineman. Physicality had a 3, although not as consistent as you like, especially within the box. When he is on the move, you do see those traits. Flair just had that a 3. Just seems like he does take pride in what, it's being a bigger, nastier type of lineman when he can, although that can improve. It is impressive, and I definitely see the upside there. Football instincts, IQ, I give it 2. Seems the more he relies on his brute size for movement, not necessarily a ton of athletic, where he's not going to overwhelm you athletically, I should say. Feet and flexibility, give it 2 as well. I think he has pretty average feet as of now, but he does show, signs potentially to play up and down the line inside. So I gave him a total score of 13 with a composite of 2.6.
So yeah, that's all of the offensive prospects. All in all, a lot of really encouraging things. I, for one, in having looked at a couple of the other prospects that we're still in contention for, I'm hopeful that we land a couple more because there's some really, really fun tape in there. One more receiver in particular, whose tape is a lot of fun, and that would be Andrew Marsh. And then certainly,
man, we need that, boy.
Even more so,
he loves us some us though too.
The Michael Turner Jr. son, or Michael the Burner Turner's son, Michael Turner Jr. at running back.
Flip watch.
Yeah, he hasn't committed yet.
He hasn't.
No,
I don't know why.
I think we were in top 6. Like there were a couple of other backs that it didn't sound like we that have committed, but whose tape I also really liked. But we will be back, if not next week, then the week following, to talk about all of the defensive prospects, and there's some really fun conversations to be had there. We may have more commits to talk about next week, but any final thoughts from either of you gentlemen before we call it a show?
I would just like to say, man, shout out to Jed Fish for sure, for hitting the ground running. We see a lot of programs that are coming in and they're replacing rosters like ours. And, they're kicking a lot of people to the curb. You know what I'm saying? We're relying on our incumbent guys and bringing in guys. We're having people match the culture. We're not trying to get rid of a bunch of people to match Fish's culture. Fish is matching Washington's culture, which I think is it's a perfect fit for him. So really, really appreciative for how he's come in. And, you say things like it's all about the W. You didn't create your own little narrative, your own anything like that. You're buying into the pageantry, buying into the tradition. And I really, really appreciate that. And just monitoring the Big Ten press conferences. He let them motherfuckers swing, bro. Being honest with you. He didn't care about, what people write about, any of those types of things. It's more of a scoff. It's mimicking how the fans feel. Oh, you don't have us this? All right, you don't have us top. That's cool. We working, bro. Like we've always done. We ain't worried about, being on somebody's list. We working. So, yeah, I just appreciate Jed Fish for sure. Especially after, experiencing something like that KD interview. You kind of like, it makes you grateful for the situation you're in.
Cliche, non-substantive answer. Cliche. Hey, how great is Bama?
Dog, it was a Bama promo, man. But anyway, off camera, we'll talk about some stuff.
Darker Knight, any final thoughts from you tonight, sir?
Nope. It's a great start to 2025 class, which seems very promising and something Jed had alluded to when he initially took the job. And we're well on our way. I think we could be in tune for some surprises coming up, especially with some commitments and just hoping to see some new dogs in purple.
Particularly once we get to some on the field results that they can point to as well. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. As I said, we will be back soon. But for now, this is an hour and 57 minutes worth of offensive content, not offensive content, for you to listen to. Thanks for listening. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs, man. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs,
yes. And I will say one more thing. They're doing a 2-week free trial of some insider content, so go check out what Roman Tomashov and Lars Hansen are doing with Locked On Huskies. Give that a check out. I know, it's I think a 2-week trial that they're doing, and then I think it's like $4.95.
$4.99, man. Come on,
amazing listen every morning.
Facts.
Obviously, we've had Roman on the podcast a number of times, and can't say enough good things about him as and the help he's given us. So give them a follow, give them a listen, support that new effort that they're doing.
And just for context, man, if you're frustrated with the lack of publicity that Washington is getting and those types of things, the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, we don't engage. You know what I'm saying? We don't buy. We don't do that stuff at the rates that other fan bases do. So when you're mad that other teams are on lists or they're in top 6 for clout reasons or they're talked about at the Big Ten press conference over your team, it's because of the fact that we don't engage at a level of Ohio State or those other people. So the more you guys, interact and purchase content and share content, it is the better. So.
Yep. Again, thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.